I think well, you tell me, but I think that the reason we're doing this is not for physical fitness or to lose weight or anything like that. It's for me, it's learning how to overcome life's challenges. You know, to just be better at life. And fitness, exercise, all the things that we're doing, diet, nutrition, are just a really good way to learn about yourself and to be disciplined and to try to grow.
Right.
So we're both in our 40s now. I don't think of myself as an ultra guy or you're an Iron Man. Like I don't really associate with the actual fitness side of it. I associate with understanding mental toughness and how to get better at even the small things, like being a better parent or being better in a relationship. And all of those things, what is funny, and we can talk about it in the ultra, all of those things come out when you're in the pain cave or when you've gone dark, when you're at that point where you don't want to do anything else, you're basically ready to quit.
Right.
You don't want to run anymore. And you have to build the skill set that allows you to go past that. And you can apply that, like I'm trying to apply that to every aspect of life. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're at work, you're stressed out, you're just like, I can't do this anymore. There's these mental exercises you can go through to just kind of say, okay, I've been here before, what do I need to do? So that's the learning experience that I'm going after.
Right.
We're doing some pretty crazy physical fitness and, exercise stunts while we're at it, but I'm far more interested in, and going back, writing it down, figuring out like, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I learn? What do I need to do next time? And that's what I think a year ago when we were on the beach, we kind of were like, oh, he gets it. He knows what I'm after.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm not after, even my friends were like, why don't you join like a race? At least you get like a free t-shirt out of it. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, but that's not what I'm doing this for. You know what I mean?
Pay for that t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And then you gotta like travel and do all this. I was like, I can go run 50 in my backyard. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
I'm more interested in like doing something that scares the heck out of me, being in the middle of it, knowing that I don't want to finish, figuring out how to finish, and then enjoying that success. Right? You know what I mean? Like heaven's on the other side of hell. Like you don't get to actually really, like I feel pretty good this morning, knowing that we've both finished and finished strong and met our goals and objectives. That's a feeling that you don't get to experience if you don't put yourself through that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I'm after. The arc,
Yeah.
I'll try and do the abbreviated version because
No,
there's multiple arcs
We get all the time in the world.
and there are probably more valleys than they are anything else. But it's funny. My childhood, like I have a similar experience to you. Like, I grew up in a great family. You grew up in a great family. Like I think we just, got introduced to all the sports. You know what I mean? Soccer. Or no, I didn't do soccer. Baseball, football. I think I even tried basketball at one point. But and then you just kind of like learn what works. And I think I took to football early. I enjoyed it. It's funny. I was so I have 4 kids, and they're all at the age where they're going through this kind of experience now. But like I was a short, chubby kid growing up, which has led to a lot of other things that have come out here, and just body dysmorphia on both sides of the fence. You know what I mean? And I always say like what's it called? Vanity can be a very powerful tool if
Right.
you know how to
Right.
use it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so they put me on the offensive line. Like they do with most short, chubby kids, and then I kind of stuck with that. And I was the catcher in baseball. You know what I mean? So probably would have been a goalie if I played hockey.
Weren't you the center
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
to an NFL quarterback?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
Sorry.
well, and it's funny. I mean, when we would get together up at Damerscott Lake, there was the Porter kids. There was all your brothers, Josh and Sam. Like it was a very intense athletic environment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the Porters are just super athletes. And I remember
Or supersized athletes.
supersized athletes. And I remember growing up around that.
Because Luke, I'm not including you in the super athletes.
No, there's 3 college athletes. I mean, it's just they,
Oh.
and then we would compete and wrestle and fight and do all that kind of stuff. And I also remember working out with you and your dad. And actually, I wouldn't have thought of this until you said it, but your dad is one of the most intense people in the gym. I just remember that. I remember we went to, I think, a Gold's gym, and we were lifting, and he was like, and you think of your dad or your uncle as like an old guy, and he was getting after it. I still remember that to this day. But
That's hilarious. Let me just interject. So my dad, maybe it's just later in life, my memories of my dad in the gym are lift quickly, then go to the water cooler for quite a long time
really?
and chat it up.
Yeah.
There was definitely a time he got after it.
Yeah.
But my memories remember, my mom would give him a hard time about how long he'd spend at the water cooler talking.
But I do remember working out with you and thinking, man, this guy's an animal in the gym. But so I was had all the sports experiences, and then when it clicked for me, same thing. It was the summer before my freshman year. I was going into high school football. They had a gym. It was down actually at the Hadlock Field where the Sea Dogs play, and the Sea Dogs would be coming and going. We had our own little gym. Rocco Franzilli was he was a teacher that would staff the weight room. He was in unbelievable shape, and he ended up being my rugby coach in high school. But I remember going in, not knowing anything about lifting, and I was a incoming freshman, and all it was juniors and seniors lifting 225, like getting after it. It was very intimidating, and I actually don't remember why I was comfortable with it, but I was just like, I know I need to be here. Like, I need to work hard. I need to figure this thing out. And it was really intimidating, you know what I mean, as an incoming freshman. And there was one other freshman, I think it was Jason Connick, that was there consistently every day, Monday through Friday, until double session started. And then I fell in love with weight training at that point. And just being in the gym and the music and, everything about it. And that brought me through high school. And I would say, hands down, I am not a gifted athlete by any stretch. You know, never have been in any sport. The only time I can get any level of success is through hard work, and also probably just the thinking aspect of it. You know what I mean? Understanding the sport, putting yourself in the right position. You know what I mean? Not drawing on raw talent. You know, just being smart about it. So, did all the stuff in high school, and then another part of the story is junior year. I was sitting in history class, sitting next to my friend John Krasnick, still my best friend, one of my best friends to this day. And a guidance counselor walked in, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey Jeff, there's a cadet from West Point here. I think you should talk to him." And I literally turned to my friend. I was like, "What's West Point?" He was like, "I think."
What year is this again?
Early junior year in high school. And he's like, "I think it's a military academy." I was like, "All right." So I had no idea, had never even heard of it before. Sat down with this cadet and started talking and asked him some questions and didn't even know what he was talking about, So I went home and I told my parents. I was like, "Yeah, cadet from West Point," and they think that I should apply. And I remember my dad was like quietly excited, and my mom was like, "No, you're military? No way." So anyways, and just one thing led to another, and I just started the process. I looked into it, and then I figured out what it was. You know what I mean? It's a really great academy, obviously. I was a good student, but I wasn't getting into Harvard or anything like that. But it appeared that I had the prerequisites to get into a school like that. And then once I started applying, I got early admission, so I got accepted early, which is just before my senior year. And then I was, at that point I was like really locked in. And
so what drew you to that?
No idea. So, I mean, like most kids, I played soldier, played Army when I was a kid, G.I. Joe, I dress up in Army gear, and I think I had some interest in the idea of that. Mm-hmm. But this was, 1999, didn't know anything about the military. All I knew was that, and this is, maybe the selfish side of things, but I was like, I would tell people when they would ask you, like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to West Point, or I'm going to West Point." And there was this, like, recognition that was a big deal. Right. And I was like, all right, that's cool. I like that. You know what I mean? That sounds like, something I should be doing. So, but I remember from when I got accepted to when I actually started, when I went, there was a year where the entire time I thought, again, I was going to be at the bottom of the barrel, right? Like, I didn't think of myself as a natural athlete. I'd done, captain the football team and, different stuff like that. But I was going in thinking that I was going to be, these guys were going to be at a different level. So I worked really hard going into it. I was running the boulevard in Portland with a weighted backpack. I was, I got boots, put those on, did rough marches because I wanted to train. And then I got there and got through basic the first summer and found out that I was physically at least in good shape. You know what I mean?
The basic you do at West Point, is it normal basic?
It's like it's fashioned like a 6 or 8 week basic training, but it's administered by the
West
by
Point.
the other cadets.
Right.
So when you're a junior senior, you have to then be the drill sergeant.
Right.
Right. And I loved basic. So there's periods of time throughout the arc where you get yourself into complex, stressful, intense situations, and you feel okay. You're dreadful getting into it,
Right.
and your brain, is telling you all the reasons why you're gonna fail or you're not gonna make it and all that kind of stuff. But when you get into it, you're comfortable. You're like, okay, this is an environment that I like. I can handle that. And I actually loved basic. I think there was times when I would also, I'm very anti-authoritarian, so West Point sucked, and I made it harder than it needed to be, just because I don't like being told what to do. But my thought process was like, I'm self-motivated, disciplined. I don't need people to tell me. Like, you want me to be up at 4 o'clock and go run 10 miles? Just tell me. Right. I don't need someone yelling at me telling me to do that, because I'll go do it. So then I would we'd be in we'd be in a line, and I would like crack a joke or try and do something just so that they would make me do push-ups, and then I'd start doing push-ups. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So
it's such a gog kind of.
Yeah, it was. I was a pain. I thought I knew everything, but I mean, West Point was hard. It's supposed to be hard. Academically, I was proficient. I was middle of the class, and physically, I think I did very well and trained hard all the way through school. I will tell you though that I met some of the most amazing animals at that school. I mean, guys that were just, so my college roommate, who actually now lives in Maine, he was my roommate for like 3 years, which is uncommon at school. They usually move you around, but we got to stick together. Captain of the lacrosse team, and they got like a D1, stud lacrosse team. Captain of the lacrosse team, top of his class academically, just an unbelievably gifted guy. Like, he was the stud that I was worried about. I was like, this is who they all are going to be like. And there was a lot of those guys, just absolute animals, And it was fun associating with them because I felt like I could keep up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've learned a lot about. Although I'll also say, at one point, when I was there was a cadet who actually passed away. But he was a runner, and he was telling me, I just remember the story, we were in the hallway, and he was like, I really want to do ultra marathons. I was like, what's that? He's like, it's like 50, 100 miles. And I remember clearly being like, I thought he was lying to me. I was like, that's not a thing. There's nobody runs 50 miles.
That was literally the thought I had when you kind of told me about it.
I was probably 20 years old, and I was looking at this guy, and I was like, you're just making things up now, because nobody does that. And we had internet, but not like we have now.
Right.
So I didn't go Google, YouTube, ultras.
Probably wouldn't even have done it.
No, I just thought he was just making things up to sound impressive. But, there was things that I wasn't into, you know what I mean? I liked being in difficult, stressful environments and figuring out, although if you're thinking about recommendations, the one thing that I regret or wish I had done differently throughout all of this, high school football is stressful and intense, and I've got one of my sons is in that environment right now, and I'm trying to coach him through it. What I never did was connect the physical and the mental for 40 years, and I'm doing it now, and I'm starting to see enormous benefits.
Right.
I was young enough and dumb enough to just be able to do it, but I never really took the time to learn how to manage negative emotions, manage your thoughts, look back and reflect okay, that was very difficult, and I kind of had to break down why is that, what should I change.
Right.
So for a long time I just got through on grit. That was it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's my biggest thing for other people that are going through difficult situations is if you can use it as a training event for the brain and understand how your consciousness works and your emotions work. The physical's something you can always do,
Right.
but you're way better off understanding that portion of it.
Right.
So, and then 6 years in the military, in the Army, same thing. So 2 deployments to Iraq, one in 2006 in Baghdad. I always tell people 2006 was crazy. I mean, it was like the peak of sectarian violence. The Sunnis and Shias were fighting nonstop. We were in the middle of it, just trying to play police. I was driving around in this very bad neighborhood with a platoon of guys, just trying not to get blown up. I mean, it was as traditional of a war experience as you would have for a year. Maybe, you know, it wasn't part of the initial invasion, you know, which was
Right.
more like what we would say kinetic, where a lot of stuff was blown up. But by 2006, IEDs were at a peak. There was just a lot going on, you know what I mean? And it was crazy. But I was 25. I had been well trained through the Army, and I was just kind of, you know, going through the motions in the sense of like I knew what to do and you just go out and do it. But again, I wasn't mentally tough, I think. You know what I mean? I probably was as a byproduct of the environment that the military puts you in. But I remember looking back, I wasn't managing my stress and emotions properly. You know what I mean?
I almost think it would be kind of like, so yesterday in the race, I'd asked Dee, I'm like, don't ask me how I'm doing because, you know, I can't think about that. I can't go there because
Right.
it makes it real. And whatever, you know, I have to answer that question, then I have to think about that question. I would almost think in a stressful environment like that, like you kind of have to you just survive. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount of just, if I stopped and thought about all the craziness that's going around,
Right.
then it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and that's the benefit.
So that might be the survival.
That's definitely the
That's
benefit
toughness.
of discipline. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
if you train hard and you're disciplined, then when you're in the race day or you're in the crisis, your discipline comes through, and you're really actually probably reacting.
Right.
So yeah, actually, I remember training for a year up to the deployment, and then all the way through the deployment. It was just like forward momentum. That was it. You know what I mean? It was just like I can't stop and complain about it. You know what I mean? You just got to keep moving
Right.
and reacting and drawing on your training and stuff. So, and then my second deployment in 2008 was, I was a captain at the point. I was on staff, which was basically a desk job. It was much quieter. And also, just a quick anecdote, 2007 was the surge, the Iraq surge. The Bush put another 30,000 troops into Baghdad. So I left in 2006. We got replaced by a surge unit, a Marine unit, and they came in. And I remember at the time being like, we high-fived and we're like, good luck, this is chaos. It's not going to get better. Like, this is terrible. And then 2007 went by, we went back to Fort Hood, trained for another year, and then went right back to the same place. And from 2006 to 2008, the improvement was like night and day.
Right.
So we got back and people were out, shops were open, the date, like there was, I can't remember the number, but it was probably something like in a brigade area in 2006, there was, 50 attacks a day, like just nonstop chaos. 2008, there'd be like one a week. I mean, had really quieted down. I'll have those numbers wrong, but
Yeah.
it was a drastic improvement, and which was nice to see,
Yeah.
for soldiers that were, given everything to try and improve this situation. So, and wanted to get out. Plan was always go to the military, do my 5 years. I did 6 because of the deployment, and get back to Maine and raise the family. Had 2 girls when I was in the Army, and we started having more. So, and then 2008-9 when I got out to when I turned 40 a year ago, 12 years was just trying to start a career, trying to manage the family, just kind of back to normal life. And I lost a lot of the, I would work out every day. I probably run 3 or 4 times a week, every week for my entire life.
Right.
Just, it's something to do. But I was not eating right, and actually I was looking at pictures in 2014 and I was heavy, like almost unrecognizable, you know what I mean? So it's just that's the arc that a lot of people go through,
Right.
especially when you get into the family environment where you're settled, barbecues on the weekends.
Schedule fills up.
Yeah, and you're not trying to, I don't need to train like I'm in the army anymore.
Right.
So, but that same 12 years was a tough 12 years for me because I let a lot of things go, and went through some personal challenges, and because I didn't spend that time on managing stress and negative emotions and all the things that I'm trying to do now, it just piled on, you know what I mean? And, I kind of fell apart, went through a divorce when I was 33 with 4 kids, which really kind of, to be honest, just floored me for like 5 years, which is another reason to like focus on mental health, managing your emotions, because life will pile on you and you've got to be able to get through that in a productive way. You know what I mean? Like anybody can just wake up in the morning and get through the day, but like try and get through it in a productive way where you're beneficial for your kids and your work and everything else. So, and then around 38, I started to like come out of that valley and started tapping into the YouTube community of like motivation and understanding what other people were doing.
Right.
I think just before me and you connected, I was going through a year or two with Joe, my brother, who thinks very much like this. He does his own type of fitness and stuff, but he has the same mindset where he's really kind of trying to understand the whole mind, body, spirit, spectrum.
Right. Speaking of non-athletes in the family, Joe fits that bill.
No. Yeah.
I hope you're listening, Joe.
Oh gosh, that was hard. Yeah, we could spend the whole hour on Joe. He's great and he's very wise. He's 8 years younger than me, and I go to him now for advice, which is really cool. But when I was 38, him and I were getting into Gary Vee. Do you know Gary Vee?
I know.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, you should check him out. He's like the Goggins of business. Like he's just like he's an entrepreneur, and his whole community is around helping entrepreneurs kind of get through the fear, right? The fear of failure, fear of being behind. You know what I mean? Like you can always start now. So, and he's got a really compelling story and work ethic. Like he's part of that whole community. Some people can't take his delivery style, but
Right.
but Joe, my brother Joe, and I started trading ideas of like what it meant to not care about what other people thought, and to set goals, like figure out where you want to be, and then design your life in a way that sets you up to make small improvements to those bigger goals. So I started to get the bug of self-improvement, essentially what it was, and then within that period of time, over those next 2 years, it kind of morphed into the physical side.
Right.
And obviously, Joe Rogan's community is great, for that, all the folks. But,
Right.
And then a year ago, last Labor Day weekend, you were doing your first full distance Ironman by yourself, which I still think is amazing. Like, it's one thing to train for an Ironman and go out into a race with the camaraderie and
Right.
the cheering and the fan and but to just go out and do it on your own takes in another level of commitment and discipline, I think, which is awesome. So you did that race, and I also, through the military and over that arc, I've always been motivated by keeping up with other people. You know what I mean? It's just like it's typical meathead high school football, like
Right.
hold my beer, like, oh, you can do that, we'll watch this, So I was like, all right, I gotta get it on track with bed. And then December, I came up here to Hamden and we went for a run, and that's when we went out and talked about, because the ultra at that point was what I really wanted to get into. And we started sharing stories, and in this just 1 year, you did your first full distance Ironman, and then we did together a marathon in the freezing rain around the boulevard, which was brutal. And I had never done a marathon before in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a runner. I'm definitely a runner.
Right.
But I just had never trained for a marathon. So we went out and we did 26, and it was like, 34 degrees, freezing rain. We were soaked.
That distance is no joke.
Yeah, it was
to start
at that
off.
at that level, knocked that out and then went straight to the ultras. So we knocked the 50K out, 31 miles on our own.
Right.
And of course you were like, and I can feel when it's about to happen, Ben. Like I'm like, I bet this is the weekend he goes out and does a 50K by himself. And sure enough, your Garmin would pop up and I'd see the miles on there. I was like, oh, I guess I know what I'm doing next weekend. So 50K, 50 miles.
But when that happens, I'm picking a good weather day.
Yeah.
A week later, you're trying to catch up now, and it's a crap weather day.
But I mean, we've just done a lot in this past year. Multiple 50s, 100-mile attempt, which we can talk about, and then this for me yesterday was actually a huge improvement just over the course of a year. You know what I mean? But what's been great through that year that I think about, one, if you're looking to improve and to challenge yourself, try to get an accountability partner. Try to get somebody that's thinking about this the same way you are, so you can motivate each other, share. Because in that past year, there was times when you were having a bad week. You know what I mean? You'd be like, I just don't have it this week. You know what I mean? And I try and give you something, and same goes for me. You know what I mean? And if nothing else, I know you're out there training, and I need to be out there training too. But yeah. So I mean, I've got decades of improvement in front of me, but I'm just happy to have started the journey of finally. And trust me, like, when behind the scenes, there's always a lot going on.
Right.
Friends, family, relationships, work, and I'm not firing on all cylinders yet, but I'm starting to pull the pieces in of what I need, I think, to sustain, a more productive lifestyle,
Right.
which is what I'm excited about. And I just think that this training environment that we're in is just a really good place to learn those skills.
Right. Right.
I also say if you're going to learn how to be mentally tough or just improve your mental toughness, it's nice when you can control the parameters. You know what I mean? Like, because when you're stressed out and you're having a bad day at work and your boss is difficult and is, breathing down your neck, you can't control that. And if that's where you're going to try and learn how to be tougher, it's going to be very hard. You know what I mean? So if you can actually just step away and create your own stressful environment to then play with, you can go at your own pace. You can, kind of dial things in and out. And then when life throws it at you and you have no control, you'll at least have had those experiences.
Right.
So that's what I'm going after. The fun byproduct is we did get to do cool stuff. I think our health is probably at an all-time peak. Which is
right
great.
now. I wonder if this is good for us.
What?
That's the way I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, put that one to bed real quick because it is good for us.
Yeah.
Like our bodies are miracles, absolute design miracles, and they're designed to be rugged and to handle the chaos of life. And that's what it is. I mean, I keep coming back to the people that I gravitate to are the ones that acknowledge that life is chaos and that there's difficulties and challenges, both internal and external. It's like, that's the reality. Right. And we were designed to be able to handle that. Yeah. We just submit to it, unfortunately, a lot of times. But
yeah, I hear people say it's probably my number one pet peeve. So when somebody say I can't do that, I can't. It's like, why?
Right.
Like, how do you know? Have you? Sure, your knees hurt when you went for a run, but you only ran once or twice.
Right.
Of course, it's gonna hurt.
Right.
It's been years since you've even ran at all. Whether it's running or whatever it is, we put these limits on ourselves.
Yeah, and I always try to tell people, and people that are just starting their journey don't want to hear it, but the reality is that nobody is above the laws of science and physics, right? You know what I mean? Like, there are fundamental laws where your body is going to learn how to adapt, you know what I mean? Like, we have muscular systems, nervous systems, things that are designed to take on that stress and to become more resilient. The reality is when they're saying that, what they're really saying is they just don't want to put in the effort.
Right.
it's harsh, but it's true. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, no, absolutely, you 1,000% can. You don't have right now what it takes to endure the training, and to get to that other side. And there's limit. Like I'll say I can't be an Olympic marathoner.
Right.
Okay, but because there's skill and work ethic that have to go hand in hand. You know, talent and work ethic
Right.
to get there.
Right.
But when you're just talking about the stuff that we're doing, like I can't run 100 miles. I can run 100 miles. I'm not putting in what I need to do yet to get to that point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know, like we all die from something. You know what I mean? And if I give my knees out because of this, which I don't think is actually going to happen, I believe the use it or lose it philosophy.
Right.
You keep your body trained, well fed, nourished, smart training. You know, we're doing way more stretching and sauna and
Right.
you know, cold therapy. If you train it properly, you know what I mean, you're going to be better off in the long run. And whatever, I'd rather have these fun experiences and do crazy stuff
Right.
when I can, and then when I'm 80, look back on it and say, at least I gave it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, as long as you're, although we could talk about being dumb, you know what I mean? There's a side of what we're experimenting here with, which is just trying to break the body,
Right.
to see where your brain breaks.
Right.
But I don't think we're there yet.
One of the things I think I've learned, or the thing that I've noticed attracts me to what you and I are doing, that drives me every day, is this attraction to uncomfortable things. So in the morning, I do a brutal workout. Like you said, you have a bad day at work. It's not as bad as my workout was.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then I'm starting to be attracted. We talked about briefly, like stand-up comedy, like how terrifying that'd be. But I find myself starting to go to these, and I think where this applies to just about anyone out there. Like we tend to go too easy for comfort across the board, and like a little thing, like at the grocery store. Like I'm at, like I see these, just heavy people among us, right? Imagine they, instead of just putting the cart in the little thing or at the curb that's right next to their vehicle that takes up a parking spot, they walked it to the store.
Right.
What if they just parked? What if they just decided to just park the farthest spot away?
Yeah.
And just walk to the store. Literally, they'd start changing their bodies.
Right.
And I've been trying to do like, I've been trying to force myself to start looking at these the comforts and challenging my thoughts on them, and it's been a really cool journey, and it kind of just branches out into everything. Why can't I do that? Why, you know, I'm looking at the effort I'm putting in at work. You know, I can give a little bit more. Like
Yeah.
I can half-ass this little thing, or I can give it my all.
Right.
And it's becoming. I've noticed this kind of snowballing into like challenging myself across the board and being a better dad, being like across life.
Right.
And it's because of this, seeing all this benefit from challenging myself physically.
Right.
And like you said, the tie-in, which, I mean, when you were talking about the tie-in to life, and you were in your late 30s, 40s, before that became a thing, yeah. I never reflected on what I was doing and contemplated it, which maybe it's just age, but
Yeah.
it's a really interesting,
Right.
once you start thinking that way. And I mean, for me, like the weight loss thing when it started was just like finding little, oh, I can cut this out, I can cut this out, oh, this is a healthier option, this is, and these little things
Right.
in life, all these little things that you start snowballing, and before you know it, your life changes and you're better. And and to me, I put in, the harder I push myself in the morning. So my favorite mornings, which we've talked about this a bunch, but my favorite mornings are the mornings where I wake up and I don't want any part of my workout
Yeah.
that morning.
Yeah.
And then I push myself, getting through that on the other side, and how good I feel every day from working out. But those days when I'm like, I didn't want to do it, but I did it, those are the days I look forward to the most now.
Yeah.
Like I know I don't look forward to it that morning,
Right.
but as soon as it's done, it's like,
Right. You learn more from those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought about this a lot in the last year based on the training that we're doing, because we find ourselves more in the situation of doing something that's very hard that we don't want to do. Like, I could probably be aesthetically in better shape by doing a lot less. I know I could. You know what I mean? Like, 3 days of cardio, weight training, and we've talked about this. Like, I could make myself look the same with a fraction of the effort.
Right.
But that's not why we're doing this.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're doing this because you wake up, you know, at 4 a.m. Your shoes are sitting there. You're staring at them. You don't want to put them on. You're making all the excuses. I've got a long day at work. Maybe I should skip it and do it later, which is code for maybe I won't do it. Though that's why we're doing this, is put ourselves in uncomfortable situations that we don't want to do. And it's not just by luck. You don't just by luck go out and do it. You have to find things that work for you to trigger moving forward through that. And then once it's accomplished, the training was probably hard in of itself, but the real victory is that you didn't want to do it at all and you still did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what you can directly apply to every other aspect. You know what I mean? I think about like the creative people, stand-up comedians or writers or artists. I have this conversation with Joe a lot, who's a writer for music writer. A lot of things that stop creatives is they're staring at the blank canvas. I paint and I have the same exact experience. You know, you're trying to create something and you get easily distracted, you procrastinate, but all that is the fear. You know, you're afraid that whatever you put on the canvas is not going to be good and it's going to be judged. And that initial resistance, a lot of people back away from, and they go find comfort instead. And when you can learn how to get through that resistance, maybe what you put on the canvas is garbage for the next 20 times, but it's that experience of learning how to get through it, which will allow you to create that masterpiece at some point in the future, right? So yeah, I agree. For everybody that says that you're gonna ruin your knees or that kind of training's not good for you, my response is comfort kills. Like, comfort is, I'm convinced, I can't back this up, but comfort is 100 times worse for you in this world based on how we're designed than going out and pushing the limits 24/7.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you can talk about balance and all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about being unbalanced and sacrificing things that are important. Like, I believe, your faith, your family, your friends are important. But when you start succumbing to comfort, which we all do all the time, you're changing your trajectory. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'll also say before we go any further, because we're talking about all the successes and the things that we've learned, I am daily struggling with this stuff.
Right.
I am daily struggling with, I just want to go sit on the couch and watch 5 hours of Netflix. I'm daily struggling with, this assignment I have to do for work is really hard and I'm just going to go clean the house as a procrastination tool.
Right.
It's a constant fight. I'd say I've amassed some skills to, navigate that better, but it never goes away.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's the other thing too with training that people, I think about this a lot with weight loss. When people get into fad diets or fad exercise programs and they give it, a month or two and, they don't see the success that they'd like to see. What I think is really happening is that they're in some ways jealous, or they think that it's unfair that other people can work out less and be in better shape. And they're like, well, that's not fair. I have to, eat no carbs and train 5 days a week for the rest of my life just to look the way that this person looks, and they wake up and eat pizza and beer. And the reality is, yeah, life is unfair.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've managed, I know that physically now. Like, if I stop doing what I'm doing, I will be out of shape. I will have a dad bod, and I will feel very bad about myself, right? Because, when you're dealing with things like inflammation and chronic health issues, your whole life is just difficult because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I do.
if I want to look a certain way or feel a certain way, it's nonstop physical exercise and discipline with nutrition until I get to a point where I don't care anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the same thing goes on with your brain. I think there's some people out there walking around, probably some Olympic athletes and some other people, that have like a chemistry in their brain that's set up to be an elite, like an elite level of mental toughness. Right, where they get into a difficult situation and their brain kind of naturally helps them resist comfort and go towards, the challenge. I don't. Like, I got a soft brain. You know what I mean? I got a gooey middle section brain, and I can complain about that and be like, man, I wish I just could get up and go get after it. But the reality is I've got to train that just like I got to train my body. And I got to probably train it every single day forever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe some things stick. Like, I think we maybe have changed our anatomy a little bit, to be more resilient. But it's constant effort, And that in of itself, even that I say these words out loud, it's a little depressing. It's a little bit like, man, wouldn't it be nice if we were just all perfect and didn't have to work as hard? You know what I mean? But the outcome, the benefit, the other side of it is so much better when you've actually earned it. You know what I mean?
And I heard in one podcast that I have no idea who it was with, but it was mentioned that a lot of people, most don't know what it's like to feel healthy.
Right.
And I was like,
yeah.
When I see these people that are so incredibly out of shape, and just moving, like them just walking into a store or whatever, it looks like the most uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
And that's the extreme. I think what we're doing just has mentally is so beneficial to you, just in positiveness. Like, you can't help but be positive after doing the workouts we do and feeling like we do, and just there's just so many, triumphs, and the failures turn into more triumph, in your learning, and just I can't imagine. A couple things I want to bring up on my arc that I forgot to mention. My freshman year when I broke my leg in football, like at that point, my identity as myself was football player athlete, and I'm injured. I can't be part of the team. I can't. It was the first time I've ever experienced kind of depression in my life.
Yeah.
And probably the only time. I mean, I was just in a funk, and there's no doubt that the weightlifting got me out of it. And actually, I remember like squatting. I've got my cast on. I'm squatting, and I remember like the varsity football coach at the time was he was pretty impressed with me squatting on a broken leg.
Right.
But then my orthopedic surgeon told me it actually healed a little faster because of that, actually. So there's that, and that definitely weightlift. That's where I first figured out, and I once again wasn't thinking about these things, wasn't looking at a deeper level, but hindsight, looking back on it, there's no doubt that exercise got me out of my funk. I believe there's. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but I believe there's quite a bit of data out there that exercise, more exercise, less depression.
Right. Right.
And then, swimming. So you were talking about not feeling naturally gifted as an athlete, had to work for everything. Swimming was the opposite art for me. I was ridiculously fast as a youth, for whatever reason. Yeah. Maybe I was a little stronger than. There was a point where everybody got taller and I stopped getting taller.
Yeah.
And everybody started passing me. And I always went to swim team. We always did swim practice. I never pushed hard in swim practice. I never once worked hard. I took, I did the workouts, but I always cut corners where I could. And, I was a sprinter. I didn't need to do all these laps, whatever. And I was leaning on natural talent at that point. I switched to diving. Well, I still did swimming in high school, but I started picking up diving, which diving was, in my head, it was like, oh, they don't even have to because for the most part, as long as I'm doing a little bit of swimming, I can still be the same speed. Like I wasn't, and I was at a point where I wasn't really gaining any. So diving was like an easier practice. It was kind of interesting to me. That was the hardest mental thing I've ever had to do. You jump off a diving board trying to do a dive and you smack hard.
Yeah.
Now you gotta get back up and do it again. And we all had a hard. So we were all like football players that are on the diving team. We were all like guys I worked out with pushing each other.
Right.
It's like, you can't go to the showers before you do that dive again.
Right.
Because we all knew if you left practice and that's in your head, that's going to be a big thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
get back. You got to get back on the horse
Right.
now.
Right.
And just pushing through that definitely, it definitely changed who I was. And then I remember my first, one thing that Logan's kind of brought up to me, my little deep thinker, my daughter, really talking with her friends and kind of relaying some of these ideas, and the friends that are struggling with weight, and fasting's come up, and she's like, but anorexia and those problems, like,
100%,
and it's,
yeah.
and I don't know where that, how, I've never been there, like where
Right.
that balance gets out of control the other way,
Right.
and that's kind of, yeah, I haven't wrapped my brain around that because
Yeah.
and I don't know how I could.
Right.
Like,
It's worth talking about, and I think that it's, in today's culture, is a huge problem. You know what I mean? Like, I remember in the 90s, like the whole cover model problem, like that was the beginning of when people started to talk about how we need to accept our bodies the way that they are. You know what I mean? Because all you ever saw was these cover models, and it was unattainable, and so we went through a decade or two of like being like, just be happy with who you are. What I like to say is, be happy with the body you've been given, because it's your body and you're the only one, right? You're not going to get anybody else's body. You have to, this is your vessel for the rest of your life, and you have to take joy in it, you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean you can't continue to improve it,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
And there's healthy ways to be restrictive with your diet that are having enormous net benefits to your physical, mental, and spiritual health. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I agree. You know what I mean? That's why you got to be careful who you're talking to. You know what I mean? I'm very sensitive to that, to my girls and stuff. That, and I think I talk about it enough where they know that I'm not criticizing what they put on their plate. I'm not restricting them. I'm having an open conversation about, do you know what's in salmon? You know what I mean? Salmon's mostly fat. Does that make you feel good? You know what I mean? Do you know what's in pasta? Do you know what's in, you know what I mean? Like, just be aware of these things and make your own decisions. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you got to be careful not to push people into a place where they're making unhealthy decisions. This is all about health.
Right. And like the other thing too is if your kids are struggling on it, have a hard time focusing on homework or whatever. It's like, what did you have to? You
Right.
know, is that playing a role?
Right.
And the more you can be, the more we're, like you said, Schwarzenegger, focusing and knowing what your body needs, and then starting to learn what makes you feel worse. When you've been eating clean, and then you obviously, all of a sudden you're feeling bad about something, or something's off.
Yeah.
It almost always relates back to the food.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like my house, we have candy, cookies, sweets. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm, you know, we're on vacation. I let things go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in any ways restricting them. I'm usually having a conversation about what we just did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why we did it, and you know, how does it make you feel? You know, that kind of stuff. And so, and they're very, very aware of. We went camping with my two high school buddies, John and Andrew. We got the families together. We went out camping at the lake and stuff. And I stuck to my diet. I think I told you I was really clean the whole way through. One meal a day. You know, only ate keto at the end of the day. And John, who's hilarious, was really making fun of me. You know what I mean? Like just going at me. And like my kids were laughing like hysterically because they knew it was true. You know what I mean? They know how I live and the disciplines and the sacrifices that I make. But I hope they see it in a positive way.
Right.
You know, not that like dad's ruining my childhood or
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just like he's accomplishing something. He's got some clear goals and objectives, and I think they're proud of it. You know.
We might have lost the last few minutes, but hold on. We'll get back into it another time. Looks like 3 hours might be the max.
Oh wow.
2 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Actually, the GoPro would have picked up.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
actually the GoPro will pick up the end of the sound.
Do a little outro. Oh, that was great. Nice chairs, man.
Thank you.
Those are comfortable.